Shekalim. Now we're up to Yud Gimel Amud Aleph. Okay, we're learning here about someone who uses a shekel out of Masechet money. Well, you've got to eat an equivalent food in Yerushalmi with like the laws of Masechet. You fulfilled your duty, we've got to eat equivalent food. So it says, Apachar, a firstborn, it's like a firstborn in an animal. So you should not make it holy. What does that mean? Kosher Kodesh. It means something which is already holy. You can't have another holiness on it. So money of Master Sheni's got Kedusha. Master Shekel can't apply on that. In case otherwise. So what do you do then? This one who put it in the shekels of Master Sheni money, put it with all the shekels. So this is what he does. Maybe a selah shel cholin. You bring another half a selah of cholin. But when he's saying, Master Sheni, that Master Sheni money, wherever it is, should be redeemed. I'll sell onto this coin. But also, on that cholin, that half now, which was cholin, it's fastened to Shem Master Sheni, now has a status of Master Sheni on it. The Hashah, and the original, the first coin that you put in the box, now no longer has Master Sheni on it. Master Shekalim, that can have the Kedusha of Masechet Shekalim. Okay. Hamachanes ma'os. So what is this? A person is gathering his small coins in his pocket, bit by bit. And he says he's starting to gather them. He says, I'm gathering this money for my Masechet Shekel. And the month of Adar comes, and he finds that actually he's gathered a bit too much. What does he do with the extra money? He says, you know what? The extra money, put it into an adava. The money is there for extra oil offerings to bring on the Mizbeach when there's nothing else on the Mizbeach. Although it was making it hekdesh by mistake, because you didn't have intention to gather it for the shekel, only what you thought, you didn't have the fit amount, but it still has holiness because hekdesh is chal even by mistake. But they still said no. The remainder is chulin, right? Because you didn't have intention only to make holy half a shekel. Anything beyond that is not hekdesh. If at the time when you started gathering, you're saying sha'avi mehen shekli, I'll bring my shekel from this money, then Shabbat, then everyone agrees that anything above and beyond the limit is definitely chulin. Because if you said clearly, if there's more, then I'm keeping the rest, right? So there we are. They do discuss actually. The Chacham Shlomo asked on the Beis Yosef. They bring that if a person put too much oil in the Hanukkah candles, then the din is all the oil is set aside for the mitzvah, even if you end up with too much oil, more than the lighting requirement time. Yeah. Now, why is any difference from the Shekalim here, where the extra is chulin? And they ask on the Taz. They don't ask this from Mishnah later on. Moisa, Mace, and Moisa. They all ask on that. Okay. Let's carry on. Someone who did an Aveira, the Shogeg, and he has to bring a Kavan Chatas. Again, he gathers money to bring a Chatas. And as he gathers it, he says, this is the money for my Chatas offering. And then he goes to buy the animal and he finds, actually, I don't need all this money. Shavin Shambais Nidava. Everyone agrees the leftover is Nidava and you buy oil offerings. But if he said, Sha'avi Mehen Chatasi, I will bring my Chatas from this money, then Shavin everyone agrees, Shambais Cholim, leftovers is Cholim. Ma ben Shekalim lechatas. What's the difference between Shekalim and Chatas? Why is it with Shekalim the leftovers are chulin and with Chatas leftovers is the davar? Ella, Shekalim yesh lahem kitzvah. There is a finite amount. Right, you mustn't give too much, not give too little. And the Chatas, however, ain't like kitzvah. There's no limit. There's no maximum limit how much a Chatas offering could be. Right? So therefore, some spend a lot, some spend a little. So we intended to gather and make holy all the money you had. Yeah. Rabbi Yehuda said, no, there's no limit for Shekalim. When they went out from exile from Babel in time of Ezra, now, the coin that was used, the Persian coin, was called Darkon, which was worth 2 Shekalim of the Torah. And they would give half of it, which is a whole shekel, to the Beis Mikdash. That was their mitzvah of Masechet Shekel. They gave half of the coin which was prevalent at that time. After a while, when the Persian kingdom fell down, it changed. And the coin which was commonly used was the selah, which is a shekel of the Torah. and they gave half to the Beis Mikdash. So they're now giving the same old half shekel they've always given in the past. Chazru lishkol tebayim. Then the coinage changed again, and it became the teba, which is like half a shekel of the Torah, the normal coin. So they wanted to give half of that. Bikesh lishkol dinrin, which is half a teba. They thought just like the coin now, which is used from the shekel is from the Torah, we should give half of that. And it's like a smaller amount than the shekel of the Torah. Just give half. Chachamim were not happy with that. They said, no, you're going to give a whole teba. You cannot give less than the half shekel of the Torah. So even the chayv of Masechet Shekalim, there's no fixed amount. Sometimes the shekels are big, sometimes they're small, and you give half the coin which applies at that time. Armor of Shimon. Shimon said, became Yad Kulam Shaveh. Although the chiyuv of giving to Mikdash changes from time to time, but whenever everyone gives the same amount of Masechet Shekel, we imagine that you don't want to give more than what everyone gives. You gather more, it's a mistake. But with a chatas offering, each one brings a chatas as he wishes. Zeh may be besalav, zeh may be b'shtav. This one spends this amount, this one spends, zeh may be shalish, this one spends this amount. So therefore we imagine to be magdish all the money that you gathered, you have to give whatever's left for an adava, for a free will offering. Because people always intended to give different amounts. Okay? This idea of when they went from the Golos, they take Darkonos. So Rambam learns, the beginning of the Second Temple, the coinage was Malchus Madai. The Darkon, as we said, was 2 Selaim. They gave half of that, which is a Selah. Rivan says this as well. There weren't so many people. Some say there weren't so many people, the half a shekel wasn't enough, so they paid double because of that, because there weren't so many people. Okay. Some apply some dinim from this to the Masechet Shekel, which applies before Purim, which is the Zeichel of Masechet Shekel they used to give when the Beis Mikdash was around. Okay, remember the Ramah writes they give half a shekel of half a coin of what is in that place. That's learned from this Persian custom that they had. Okay. Where are we up to? Rabbi Yehuda Omer. Is that where are we up to? Sorry.
Gemara.
The Gemara. Yes. Where's the last one? I've lost it. 1 minute. Yehuda Omer. Is that where we are? Sorry, where? Harav Shimon. Yeah. Zeh maybe Shtayim. Zeh maybe Shosh. We did that right. Hamachanes. Is that where we are? Yeah. So one's gathering money. He says, "This is for my shekel." Shammai said the extra is Nedava. Beis Hillel said the extra is Cholim. Rabbi Yosef said, "Rabbi Lazar, my plea. What they argue, but Machanes appropriate. When you're gathering coins bit by bit, you didn't intend to do more than half a shekel. So anything else is batas and it's not hegdish. That's Beis Hillel. If you said, look, this should be for my shekel, everyone agrees the leftovers is for Nedava. He said, no, they're arguing when you gather bit by bit. And then Beis Shammai said everything's holy. If you said these for my shekel, everyone will agree it's chulin. You know you can't give more than half a shekel. So you never intended to give hekdesh any more than what you had to give. Nasnisa Messiah. Sorry for giving the wrong address, yeah? I said that before, but yeah. Nasnisa Messiah. The Mishnah supports Rabbibi. But it says, someone who says, these are for my shekel, everyone holds the leftovers are chulin. The Tanam learns Mishnah, Amr of Shimon. Ma ben Shekalim, the chatos. What's the difference? Look, I give a shekel, I give a bit extra. We say, it's nothing. And chatos, the extra chatos money, that's holy money. What's the difference? Because shei chatos becomes an adava, and with chulin it's not. Ela shashkalim yesh lahem kitzvah. The shekel is a finite amount you have to give. The chatos ain't like this. When you're bringing a carbon, there's no fixed amount how much you're going to give. Some spend more, some spend less. Now Chizkiah takes on. The Shimon said his words according to everyone. So it comes out that his words are going on a situation where Beis Shammai Beis Hillel agree. So he says, Man Akiyam, and what are we talking about here? Im Ba'omer. If you're going to tell me talking about a case where a person said, he's gathering his money bit by bit, and as he's gathering it, I'm going to bring my shekel from this. Then everyone agrees, any leftover money, Shammai Chulin, doesn't become holy. Im Ba'omer, if he says, I'm gathering it, I'm going to bring my chatas offering from this, Then everyone agrees, that the leftovers is chulin. As we said, if you're going to say, I'm going to bring from this, then obviously you didn't intend to make the whole thing holy, only the bit that you needed for what you needed for that purpose. So Shimon is going to explain the reason between leftover chatas money and leftover shkalim money, but it can't be in these situations. So what are we talking about? He said, look, these are for my shekel. And then he's filling out his hand, he's collecting his coins, he doesn't count them. He says, these are for my shekel. And then, chatas and shekel are different. So shkalim has a fixed amount from the Torah. Therefore, most of any leftover extra money is not holy. Chatas, chatas there's no fixed amount for a sacrifice. Therefore, most of the leftovers that does become holy and is used for other animals. What will Rabbi Yosef do? He holds, if someone says, this is for my shekel, everyone agrees the leftover is nadaba. How does he understand the Shimon? First of all, he explains it by mechanis prod, where you're gathering coins bit by bit to Beis Hillel. And that's like Beis Hillel's view. Now, Beis Hillel distinguish if you gathered them for half a shekel, or if you gathered it for chatas. If you gathered it for half a shekel, he said the leftover is chulin. If you gather it for a chatas offering, the leftovers is nadaba. But we learned in the Mishnah, Masechet Shekalim chulin. Leftover money from shkalim is not holy, but chatas on is nadaba. The Mishnah just says, it sounds like everyone holds to this. So it must be, let's say you're gathering the money, and you said, this is for my shekel, and that's like Rabbibi, and everyone should say it's chulin. So he says, no. Pasalah, the Mishnah is talking about a case, but mechanis prod. You're gathering coins bit by bit, uka Beis Hillel, and it's according to Beis Hillel who hold in this situation. So you're gathering for the shekel, you've got too much money, the leftovers afterwards is not holy. Okay. Now one thing is clear. Hamafrish shikla, if you separate your shekel, the sava shulchan, you think you have to pay it. Oh, I haven't paid it yet. V'nimsa she'enachai. But it turned out you'd already paid it. Right? Like Hadash. That second coin is not holy. That was by mistake. It doesn't become holy by mistake. What happens if you separate two in one go? The sava shulchan, you thought you'll have two. Nimsa she'enachai v'nachal. Oh, you only have one. Right? Then Isa shekel ma'adov. How do you treat the sheni? How do you treat the second one? Yeah? Is it like hekdesh b'taz? It's not holy. But since at the end of the day, look, you do have to pay something, but you separated more than you need to, maybe not. Nishmi'ina minada, we learn from the following. Hifrish chatas v'sava shulchan, you separate your chatas offering, and you thought you have to bring a chatas. You think you've done something wrong? Then imsa she'ena chayav. No, you don't have to bring the sacrifice. Low culture, the animal's not holy. It was hekdesh, made holy by mistake. Hifrish shtayim, the Saba Shulchav Shtayim, you separated two animals. You thought you have two liabilities for an animal offering. Venim Sashen Chav Alachas, you only have one. Isa Shnia, the second animal, Ma'ad Avle, what do we do with it? Ella, he says, you know what? It must be Kedusha Roya, you know what? Get it pasturing until a blemish comes along. We can't offer it up. And then we'll sell it and we'll use the money for other donation offerings. Achanami, so we should say the same thing here. If you separate two shkalim, and you only have one, Elon and Dava, the extra one, should go into the free will gesture of donations. Now, how are you saying with Shkalim, Elu, these are for Nadava? I mean, the second one, you're going to fall into Nadava? I mean, how can you compare Shkalim to Chatas? They're very different. We said if you gather money bit by bit, you said these are for my shekel, and you have extra money, it's not holy, the extra money, according to Beis Hillel at least. If you do that with Chatas, the extra money is used for other offerings. So we should also therefore make a difference if you separated two and it turned out you only have one. Although we said with Chatas the money of the second one is a donation, and with Shekalim it's not. But Shekalim is not. The Sheni, the second one is Chulin. So, if you separated two and it turned out you only need one, it shouldn't be holy at all, the second one. Okay. Then Rabbi Yehuda said, even Shekalim don't have really a fixed amount. Why is that? We said the Jewish people didn't always give half a shekel. When they went through the Persian exile, they gave a different coin, a darker coin, right, which was double the amount. And then they went to Tivim, a different amount. Darkonos are dinrin, they're gold dinars. They started giving slime because like the proper normal value. And eventually the kind of coinage changed, and Chazal Ishkal Tivim, they gave smaller value coins because that was the current staple coinage in the system. Palge Silim, which are like half of that.
What is it with Darkonos, along with the dragons? Is that just a Hebrew word?
There is a Mishnah in Avodah Zarah which refers to that. Dark Cohen, I think so. Dark Cohen. It's like they used to have kalim with images of dragons on them. Anyway, nowadays it's a passport, right? So they wanted to give the smaller coins because that was the new coinage system. So they wanted to give half of that, but that's less than the Torah value. Big Shalishka Dinrin, they wanted to give Dinrin, which is krotim, which is like quarter slime. So they wanted to give half the normal value. The Chacham said, no, you can't do that. Min Hador, from the following. It says in the book of Nehemiah, we fixed the mitzvahs that we're all going to give, we're all going to donate. That says, a third of a shekel in the year to serve Lavadat Beit Elokeinu. For the lechem, for the 12 loaves, etc., on the shulchan every week, in the Mishkan, in the Beis Mikdash, the Tamid offering, the other offerings. It says, Shlish shekel is a shlish of this bigger coin, the darkened coin, which was the coinage at that time. So you see that the basin of Ezra and Nehemiah fixed that you cannot give less than at least the mitzvah of Machzis HaShekel. You can't give less than that. He says, you know what? When you give money to the poor, at least give 1 shekel, 3 times a year, so 3 shekels a year. You tell that to the fundraisers, yeah? 3 shekels a year. And also we learn, we don't ask the tzibur to give more than 3 times a year, right? So if you know any charity people who do fundraisers for various institutions, then this is what we're talking. From this passage we have a source, the Shalosh Sa'im, that which we learned, the boxes could hold 3 sar each box. And we have a source, the Shalosh Kupos. We learned that each time they sort of drained the coinage out of the box, and they would take from the 3 boxes of 3 sar. There were 3 acts of separation in the year to take the coins out of the containers. Okay? It says, you see, shall give. Anyone who passes by, this is in the Mishkan, right? And they gave half a shekel, the shekel HaKodesh. Rabbi Yehuda and Nehemiah. Chad once said, this was the time of the sockets for the Mishkan. They sinned with the golden calf midday. Therefore the Torah said, Yitnu Machzis HaShekel, give half a shekel to the Beis Mikdash to be a forgiveness. For the Mishkan. The other one said, they sinned at 6 hours of the day. Therefore Yitnu Machzis HaShekel, they should give half a shekel to Avad Shita Garmesin. Is worth 6 small coins, which are called a garment. 6 small coins are worth half a shekel. So because they sinned at 6 hours of the day. And the other one said they sinned with the egel at the middle of the day. Okay? They're giving Machzis a half of the coin, and not to give less than the share of the Torah requirements. Okay. Rabbi Yeshua Nechemia, because they went against the 10 Commandments, therefore one who agrees to idolatry as if he's denying the 10 Commandments, therefore each one should give to the Beis Mikdash every year as a forgiveness of Seres Gera 10 Gera, which, as we said, which is the value of Machzis HaShekel. Shekel HaKodesh is 20 Gera, so 10 Gera is again half the shekel, and that's 10 Gera. Another reason for giving half a shekel, Reb Rachia, Reb Levi, B'Shem Shimon Lakish, B'Fisha Machru, B'Chayra Shel Rachel, the brothers of Yaakov sold Yosef, who was the firstborn of Rachel, Ve'esrim Kesef, for 20 pieces of silver. Therefore the Torah says, because everyone should redeem his son. The amount they redeem is 20 pieces of silver. Okay? 20 pieces of silver. The selah is 4 dinrin. 5 salayim, which the Torah mentioned, is worth 20 dinrin. And that's the 20 kesef that the brothers of Yosef took for selling Yosef. They sold B'chayra Shel Rachel, they sold Yosef, B'esrim kesef, with 20 pieces of silver. Each one of them ended up getting teva, which is 2 dinrin. There were 10 of them. They got 20, so each one got 2. Each person should provide every year the shekel for his shekel teva, which is the value of that coin. Right? If they were punished for selling Yosef, and that's why they have to give money for the firstborn, now why is it that the tribe of Yosef have to give 5 Salaim to the tribe of Levi? What do they have to do? They weren't involved. He says the kavanah is, since they all agreed that the redemption of a person is 20 kesef, which is 5 silver coins, which is roughly around 100 grams. Therefore, the Shevet Levi will take 5 Salaim for Pidyon Aben. Yeah, that's how much they take. Okay.
Is that those coins you got?
Yes, I've got some sets, yeah. 100 grams of silver. Alright, let's carry on. Halacha Dalet. Masechet Shekalim. So if you gather money for your half shekel and it turned out you had a bit extra, the extra is not holy, as we discussed in the previous Mishnah. If the Cohen Gadol gathered extra flour for his offering, actually, is it the Cohen Gadol this one? A person's bringing for Korban Mincha that he's obligated. A person gathers money for bird offerings, for a woman who's given birth, whatever, various other illnesses, etc., spiritual illnesses. You end up with more money. Sin offerings and guilt offerings. Any extra money is used for donations on the base of Mikdash, on the extra sacrifices that are brought. This is the rule. If it comes to buy a guilt offering, the leftovers is used for other offerings. If you gathered money for an Ayla offering, you bought an animal and you got extra of a change, you should use that money for another Ayla offering. Maisa Mincha, you got extra money for Mincha offering, use it lemincha for Mincha offering. Maisa Shlamim leShlamim. Another Shlamim offering, you got extra money, use it for a Shlamim offering. Okay? Maisa HaPesach, you gathered money for Korban Pesach, for the Paschal lamb, and then you bought your animal and you got a bit of change. This Shlamim, use it for another Shlamim offering. Right? And you bring that as Shlamim. Don't leave the money for next year's Korban Pesach. No. Use the money for Shlamim offering. Okay? Now, of course, leftover Korban Pesach can end up being a Shlamim. It's got a din of a Shlamim. It needs the various dinim, chaz of a shaykh, waving like a Shlamim. But in some ways it's slightly different. Shlamim is eaten for 2 days and 1 night. Right? Korban Pesach can only be eaten that night, yeah? So there are some differences. Okay. Maisa Pesach the Shlamim. Maisa Nazirim, if a Nazir, a Nazirite, he gathered money for the poor Nazirim, they didn't have enough money. People bought korbanos, they need their korbanos, they needed. You have leftover money. Li Nazirim, you give it to a Nazir. Maisa Nazir is the Nadaba. Any extra money, a Nazir who gathered money for himself, and he doesn't need any more, then that's the Dava. Use that for other offerings, donation offerings. Masechet Shekalim Daf. Rabbi Yosef, when I was in Baba, Shammai is called Rabbi Yehuda. I heard Rabbi Yehuda Shal Shmuel. He asked Shmuel, if a person separated a shekel, amazing, he died. He's not given it. What do you do with that coin? Forgiveness. Shekel is a forgiveness. We don't have forgiveness for the dead. Amalei says, just give it for the donation. The Kohen Gadol has to bring the 10th of an ephah of flour every day. He's got leftovers. It's his extra. He's got leftovers. What does he do with it? Take the money to the Dead Sea and destroy it. Rabbi Lazar said, give it to donations. Our Mishnah seems to argue Rabbi Yochanan. Masechet Shekalim, leftover money from Shekalim is Chulim. Masechet Shekalim, leftover Shekalim, Masechet Shekalim, various other sacrifices. Chatzos Hasham is guilt offering based on Nedava. It's on Nedava. So we're talking about the Asir Sa'if for the flour offering of the Kohen Gadol is Nedava. And that includes all obligatory flour offerings, including the Chavitin of the Kohen Gadol. So our Mishnah goes against Rabbi Yochanan, who said take the extra to the Dead Sea. We're saying you don't have to take it to the Dead Sea. It becomes free will stuff. What's Rabbi Yochanan doing with it? Pasale explains it. The Ma'aseh Asir Sa'ifa shall minchas chayta shall kol Yisrael. So we're talking about the Asir Sa'ifa of a sinner, not a Kohen Gadol, the sinner who did an Avera. He has to bring the means tested korban. Yeah, if he's not that rich, he brings a flour offering. And he was poor, he brings a flour offering, and that's what he has to bring. He's got extra money, it goes to Nedava. But the Kohen Gadol's Chavitin, that was an obligation, That's not coming for a sin, so it doesn't go to the Dava, that you just destroy it in the sea. Masechet Shlamim Lishlamim, leftover Shlamim goes to Shlamim, and Pesach also goes to Shlamim. Rabbi Baba, he asked the question. Now, those Chachamim in Bavel, they used to say, Meinayin Pesach Mishtana L'Shem Shlamim. How do you know? Now, when you bring a Korban Pesach in the wrong time, it becomes a Shlamim. It's a kosher animal. It becomes a Shlamim offering. Right? When should you bring a Korban Pesach? Any offers? Erev Pesach. Erev Pesach in the afternoon. That's the time to bring the Paschal lamb. Yeah, Erev Pesach in the afternoon, and you eat it at night, from midday till the evening. That's the time to bring the Korban Pesach. If you brought it beforehand, it's possible. However, if you brought it for the sake of a Shlamim, it's kosher. Because the din is of Pesach when it's in the wrong time. If you had the intention for Shlamim, it changes, becomes a Shlamim. And it's a kosher korban. So now where is this learned from? Let's see. So Benayin Shah Pesach Mishtana L'Shem Shlamim. Now it could possibly change to be a Shlamim and it's kosher. So Hamaloma, it says in the pasuk of Shlamim, Yimin Atzon Kavana, a person brings from the sheep his korban, Zerach Shlamim, he brings a Shlamim, Kol Shul Min Atzon, any animal that comes from the sheep and the goats, Korban Pesach, for example, can come from sheep and goats. But Shlamim, if you bring it in the wrong time, it can be a Shlamim offering. Hitivud Ne'asare Oila B'Minazon. Now an Oila offering, which is completely burned, of course, that can also come in outside. That can come from sheep. And according to you then, anything coming from sheep can be a Shlamim. So leftover Oila money should be Shlamim. So he says no. Dava She'ena Ba'ela Min Atzayin. No. That's talking about something which only comes from sheep. Like Korban Pesach, Yasa Oila She'ba Min Abaka. Oila offering can come from cattle as well. So we're not discussing that. Things which are sheep and goats can be a Shlamim. But things which are cattle can't be a Shlamim. Ha'tivul, they ask, Asham, a guilt offering, that only comes from sheep. Right? And therefore you should say it should be, any extra money should be a Shlamim. The minad side, if it's from the sheep, it's this korban. Davashubah mikal atzai. Something that comes from all types of sheep. That's sheep and goats, like Korban Pesach. As opposed to the guilt offering, that only comes from sheep, not from goats. So if you've got leftover money, it does not become a Shlamim offering. Now, usually the word min, usually min is lemai, is to exclude things. But here the word min is telling me the rabbis to include things, sheep and goats. Now here as well, min lemai, we are excluding. Milt is exclusion. You cannot bring Korban Pesach from sheep which are in their second year. It's got to be within the first year. Or milt and she'ena bana kevan. It cannot come female. It can only be a male animal. Now, what about the pasuk? The sheep can bring from a guilt offering. Min lemaitu. It's also coming to exclude she'ena ba ela min akosim levad. That only comes from sheep. Min. It's not Korban Pesach or Asham, but Ribun is learning. Talking about Pesach, the extra hay sign. Okay. What's he saying? Min is lemait hu she'ena ba. You can't bring an asham only from sheep. So again, it's an exclusion. Hatibu, they asked the question. Vakasiv, it says, now this is, it says, if you're bringing a carbon from your sheep or from the goats for an oil offering, so let's say, Pesach, you got leftover money from Pesach offering, but oila, maybe it should be brought as an oil offering. Just like you're saying the shlamim can come from sheep or goats, and leftover Pesach, whatever, can come from sheep, can be shlamim, let's say the same with an oil offering. We will change something which is eaten to something else which should be eaten. So Pesach, leftover money, you use a shlamim offering, the owner gets to eat a bit, but it's burnt. However, we're not going to change it to an oila which is completely burnt. We can change something which is kachim kalim, which is lower level holiness, for a similar thing. You cannot change to an oila offering which is higher level, the shem kachim, which is a much higher status. Yeah. Rav Yechon said, this matter of Chanina argued the Chachamim. Rav Chanina said, they said, they said, you know what, Pesach in the wrong time can't be a shlamim unless Elohim came shachatay l'shem shlamim. They must have had it in mind. You hear that? He's saying they have to shecht it for the sake of shlamim. For the sake of shlamim. That removes it from being a Pesach, makes it a shlamim. But if you shecht it for something else, for an ayla or something, it's possible. I say, even if you shecht it for the sake of an ayla, it becomes a shlamim, and it's kasher. The reason Rabbi Yechon, if from the sheep is this carbon for shlamim, the zebach, the extra word, shlemah, zebach, kol shu zebach. For any carbon, you want to shech this carbon Pesach, for anything, when it's the wrong time, bar shlamim, it becomes a shlamim. Now, if you shechted it, and we're going to go here, a few more lines. Now, if you slaughter it for another sacrifice, for an oil offering, but at the time of Shechita, you had a machshava which would puzzle the carbon. You had the wrong thought when you did the Shechita. Would that help to change it to shlamim, or would it not help? So let's see, what's the case? Hey Ravina. Shachta, you slaughter it for the sake of an oil offering. And you're thinking, I'm going to sprinkle the blood tomorrow. Now, usually sprinkling the blood at the wrong time is pigul. Yeah, one who eats it gets kores, right? So, he's thinking he's slaughtering for oila, and he's going to sprinkle the blood tomorrow. That creates a pigul status. What difference is there? You're going to tell me it's still a Korban Pesach, or it's a shlamim. We can possible, but that's possible. Any carbons with his slaughtering, with the intention for the zrika to the sprinkling tomorrow is pigul. So he says no. Of course it's possible. The question is, if you eat a kazayas of it, is you get kasek kares or not? When there's pigul, that you had the intention to do sprinkling the wrong time, if you eat it, there's kares. If there's extra problems, there's no kares. Kares is only if pigul's the only thing wrong. Remember that from Kodrim? Kares is only if pigul's the only problem. If there's another problem, then the kares excision punishment is not there. So the question is now, are you chayav kares like one who eats pigul, or you're eating other kachim which is anyway possible? So there's no kares. Pigul is only a carbon where without that pigul it would be kares. Without that problem it would be kares. In Tema you're going to tell me so intention of a wrong carbon removes its Pesach status, it becomes a shlamim status. Then it's like other shlamim, where you have in mind intention to sprinkle the blood tomorrow, which is pigul, and there'll be kares if you eat it. But in Tema you're going to tell me your thought of carbon puzzle does not help to remove the Pesach status. Then it comes out that it's a Pesach slaughtered at the wrong time, which is a carbon which is puzzle in its own right, even without the Chutz Male problem, and it will be puzzle and it will not be pigul. And why doesn't answer the question? Okay, how are we doing? We've already said, I know there's a mincha across the road at 7 o'clock. We'll do a few more lines. A Pesach which is slaughtered lifnei zmanai, right? You made an animal holy a few days before Pesach, and then you went and shechted it on the 14th. You need to shecht it shloi lishmai to remove the Pesach status and make it into shlamim. If you shechted it for Pesach, it's a Pesach slaughtered for the wrong time, which is possible. Let's see. Lishmai v'shaloi lishmai v'shayim v'sashana. Imagine a Pesach not on the 14th. You started slaughtering it for a Pesach, and then you changed your mind while you're slaughtering it for the sake of a shlamim. Do we say that shalai lishma removes the lishma which we had first, and it changes, becomes a shlamim, or not? Since Sha'ama, you said at the time, the end of Shechita, I'm doing it shalai lishma for the sake of shlamim, you've changed it. It's like you started slaughtering normally, and you shechted it, you finished it for shlamim, who kasha, it is kasha. Amalei says, if that's the case, you've removed the Pesach Shlita Kamana and you made it into Shlamim, then I feel a Shachta Lishmai. Even if you shecht it before Lishmai for the beginning, for the sake of Pesach, but you had the intention, Lizrak Daba Shalai Lishmai, I'm going to sprinkle the blood for Shlamim, then we should also say, Yasim B'Shav Rishona, Yeshachta Lishmai. It's like from the very beginning, you were shechting it Lishmai, but Shalai Lishmai for both, you finished with Shalai Lishmai. It's like you're thinking you're going to sprinkle the blood Shalai Lishmai, and that should be Kasha, V'hei Kasha. Rav Abba Mari, he says, Minala, how do you know? If you slaughter it with nothing wrong, with no wrong thoughts, bishtika, and you're going to sprinkle the blood wrong, how do you know it's kasha? Dilma, maybe, even if you shecht it bishtika with no bad thoughts, and I'm going to sprinkle the blood wrongly, and maybe it's possible because you've done in a whole avodah. You did something for the sake of Pesach. Maybe that's it. It's got a Pesach name now. Maybe your thought you have about sprinkling will not remove that Pesach status. Maybe it's not going to help to turn it into a shlamim. You understand? Yeah, you had a thought of sprinkling, but how's that going to change the animal? Okay, I think we will stop here today. We'll waste time.